Welcome to Know Your Money, where we will explore our relationship with money and how the psychology of it impacts our financial decisions, as everyone thinks about money differently. In our podcast, we'll be presenting a variety of financial topics in an easy-to-understand way, which we hope will assist you with managing your money. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Know Your Money. Warren, Craig, how are you today?
Me again first, Craig. I'm very well, Bronwyn. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Nice to see you, Bronwyn. Warren looking nice and relaxed today.
Always a pleasure, Craig.
Never a chore.
So, Craig, you have an interesting guest for us today.
We have a very exciting day today in the studio. We have Mike Williams, who I like to refer to as Magic Mike. He's been my coach for the last 20 years, and he's basically kept me on track for these last 20 years. And he has a Friday morning session, and he's a great person to help people get on track, attain their goals. And I thought it would be a great idea to have him in the studio with us and share some ideas.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Mike.
Hello, Mike.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this in great company here. I think we're all on the same page.
Absolutely.
And so Bronwyn and Craig, thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it. Quite excited. I've got a lot to say. Been doing this for 43 years. So I've maybe got too much to say. And I've asked Bronwyn and Craig to keep me on track.
Yes.
So
I think in line with the series that we've just sort of finished, which was the 7 different relationships that you have with money, when we've been talking in the studio, Mark, one of the most important things I think you said is that life isn't just about money. Money doesn't just make you happy, but it is, there's a quote, I can't remember who it's by, money is just a tool, freedom is the goal. So your goal isn't money, your goal is freedom, and money can get you there. And one thing that you do with Craig is talk about the 7 different areas of your life that is wealth. Or do you want to explain that a little bit?
okay, so it used to be the 8 areas of life. Okay. But
Domineering,
I
see?
shortened it to 7 because Bronwyn twisted my arm. She likes the number 7. But I like 7, and I'll tell you why. I combine family and friends together. Okay, because for me, my kids are my friends. So I was quite happy to go with 7.
Thank you.
So, so there's spiritual, which is an important part of our wealth because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. And I've been meditating since 1973, and I'm a big component of my life is spiritual. And then there's mental. I think today, especially the world we're living in, mental health is critical. I think for many years we weren't worried about mental health for some reason. Although it's always been important, your mindset, the way that you think.
And do you think spirituality helps your mindset?
Hey?
Do you think your spirituality or meditating helps your mindset?
Yeah, they're very connected, spiritual and mental.
Yeah.
We talk about the 3 brains. There's your heart, and your heart has neural pathways. It has more neural pathways than the brain. And the heart sends more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the heart.
Sure.
And then there's body, which is gut feel. Okay. And then there's the brain. So those are your 3 brains.
I think with the mental stuff, when I was growing up, which wasn't that long ago, or maybe it was now, but mental health was almost if you showed problems with your ability to cope in life or your mental health, it was seen as a weakness. And so you were almost put in a position where, you had to show strength mentally, especially as a young man, despite suffering. Mm-hmm. And by never actually addressing that suffering, it's what's the word for it? It's a vicious cycle. because it continues to perpetuate.
Yeah, and I think
And I love what you're saying, because I think men in particular, by the way, my 4 daughters call me a feminist. Okay. I'm very pro-woman. I think they should run the world. Okay.
Agreed.
Very good. And what I was saying about men is that there was such a stigma to say, for a man to say that I'm going for therapy. Women, no problem. But men
I agree with
have
you,
an
Mike.
issue with
Yeah.
that, because it shows weakness. You're going for therapy. What's wrong with you?
And remember, I don't know, you're also in the army. Us older guys are in the army, and if you're on the operational area and you're in combat situation and you came back and you looked a little bit off color, and it's PTSD today that people realize. But I mean, in our time, when I say our time, in the 80s, they used to say, well, why do you look a little bit off color? I think you should go and get your hair cut. I mean, and that was your debriefing.
Sounds
Cutting
of
your hair
therapy.
was, so there's no debriefing whatsoever, and and it was like that old thing, cowboys don't cry. But I think,
Yeah, so, when we talk about these 7 areas of wealth, they are critical to your money, because if you're not happy at home, you said you had a situation in your 30s, early part of your 30s, it obviously affected everything. And so I think when it comes to money, I mean, we talk about prosperity consciousness or poverty consciousness. And to me, in order to make money, which is important, there's no question money is important. In order to make money, you need to have a prosperity consciousness. In other words, you attract situations, circumstances, and people that harmonize or are in alignment with your desire to make money. You attract the right customers, you attract the right business opportunities, because you're in a good headspace. But you can't be in a good headspace if any of those 7 areas are suspect.
And I also think that you can't be in both. You can't be in a scarcity mindset and a prosperity mindset. You're in one or the other.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why the poverty consciousness and the prosperity consciousness are very important for you to become aware of, because and when I say poverty consciousness, it's not necessarily about money. It's about the way you look at your spouse, the way you look at your children, the way you look at your customers, the way you look at your country that you live in, the way you look at yourself. And when you feel good about yourself and you feel good about your country and you feel good about your business and you feel good about your customers, it's a very powerful thing.
Absolutely.
And people forget that. And I see a lot of people who force money into their life through hard work. They really push through. They're full of hustle. They make things happen. But that's not wealth. Because those people that I've met who've got that kind of money, that they pushed through and they've made that money through hard work and all of those things, they're never happy with their money.
One of those 7 areas are lacking.
Yeah.
That you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Paul Getty earlier on, who, his grandson was abducted and they wanted 17 million and he refused to pay it. And then they cut off the kid's, he was 16 years of age, cut off his ear and sent it to them in an envelope. And he still refused to pay the money.
That is crazy.
And eventually his accountant said to him, if you pay 2.3, I can get a tax break. Then he was interested. Can you believe it?
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Well, referring to what you were saying there, I've worked with a lot of artists, without naming names, who are incredibly wealthy, but incredibly unhappy.
Yes.
Desperately unhappy, some of them. And I think it is down to, I've always put it down to that they've just got that wrong balance. They're seeing money as the end goal and not happiness. And yeah, it's sad to see.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of this doctor, Dr. Schweitzer. He said, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success.
Wow.
I love that. And then one of my meditation teachers, he said, happiness radiates like the fragrance from a flower. and attracts all
So
good
true.
things to you.
Absolutely.
So true.
And we really got to make that our goal, is happiness. And then all those other good things come to you.
So I've always, since that time in my 30s, I've always said to myself that just find what you love, do it and do it well, and the rest will just take care of itself.
Yeah.
And
Money
so
will
far it
come.
has. I mean,
Yeah.
the last sort of 3-4 years of my life have been phenomenal because I'm just, I found things that I enjoy doing. I've learned, Bronwyn, I've learned to charge
Well
what
done.
I'm worth.
And you look it too, by the way. You've got a nice sparkle in your eyes.
And Warren, you went through to COVID. I mean, when you weren't traveling and you weren't recording,
that was
this,
a
and then
bad
you
time,
changed your
Craig.
whole.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but you made a good time of it. Look at the business you've got. Your creations on wood has been amazing.
Yeah, so I think another thing
And
I
you're
sort
touring
of
again.
do believe in, right, and I don't know if you'll agree, Mark, but I believe that you have to go through a certain amount of suffering to realize that change is needed and also that this is not how you're supposed to live. I think that everyone needs strife in life, or what a better word for it, but I think that once you go through that process and you come out the other side, you can really focus because you can remember those emotions. You can remember those horrible feelings, the
But
desperation.
I want to say something that suffering doesn't stop, by the way.
No, I agree.
No. Life wants you to grow, and life's going to throw you curveballs.
Yeah.
I'm turning 74 next year.
You look a lot younger.
Yeah.
Thank you. But what I want to say to you, that I can say this to you, I don't know what your age is, but at 74, I can say to you, trust me, those curveballs are coming.
Yeah.
They've been dispatched.
No,
Because
I agree. It's not
I
all
mean, look at
roses.
what you went
It's not.
through, and look at what the wealth that you drew out of those negative experiences, and it's made you a better person. I can see it.
100%.
I can see it on you. It's all over you. But don't think that it's over.
No, I don't.
And
I
I
often
had a
have,
diagnosis 11 years ago.
Yes.
A life-threatening diagnosis. And I want to tell you, it's been the greatest gift to me. It's really woken me up. And I thought I was awake
Yeah.
11 years ago because I've been doing this work a long time. But it shifted me into a whole different upper room. And I know that upper room, there's another one above that and above that. But how do I get there?
Yeah.
And I know one of the most powerful ways to get there is suffering.
Yes.
But suffering, again, is a mental attitude.
I agree, yeah.
You know, you can see suffering, not the way people look at it and say that's suffering. You can actually see the gift that is giving to you. And therefore, that's the way out of suffering, is to have a different perspective.
So my
To see the glass half full, not half
my
empty.
wife often says that, Bronwyn. She says, COVID is the best thing that could have happened to you. It was through COVID that I decided that I no longer wanted to drink, that I wanted to live a sober lifestyle.
Beautiful.
And it works for me, and I'm so
Beautiful.
much happier for it.
Yeah.
And it was through COVID that I realized how important my family was to me.
Yeah.
And, everything now in my life revolves around my wife, my son, and all my family.
Beautiful.
Because that's what that matters.
And that's what
Absolutely.
life's about, really. You know, in reality, it's not plain sailing. Again, you have to keep me on track. But I want to tell you, I love telling stories.
learn
I
through
was on a
stories.
plane one time, flying wherever, and there was a movie on. And I'm still trying to get a hold of this movie. And it was really an interesting movie because in this movie, there's this guy who's a real baddie. You know, he's on Earth and he's a gambler, he's a womanizer, he's all those terrible things. And he dies and he goes to this place and he has this valet that follows him everywhere. And he wants to gamble, he wins, he wants women, gets as many women as he wants. You know, the so-called ideal life that sometimes people misunderstand. And eventually he turns to this valet and he says, listen, I'm sick of this bloody place. I want to go to hell. And the guy starts laughing. He says, you are in hell.
Sure.
What a lovely twist.
Absolutely.
That he has everything, but just absolutely hated it.
Yeah. And I think back to the happiness.
Thank you.
I think so many people say, I'll be happy when.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be happy when. And then if you just try and be happy with what you are, all that when comes now, right? I think
In fact,
that's...
there is only now, as they say. It's hard to sometimes understand that. So let me see if I can finish the 7 areas.
Yes, so we've got to.
Because I told you
Without me interrupting,
I
sorry.
go off on a tangent. All right, so we said spiritual, mental, then there's physical, health, the body, okay? There's work, which is a beautiful way to express yourself. You know,
Work
you
or
love what you
purpose.
do, and you can see it. And I know Craig loves what he does. His clients really appreciate what he does for them. And then there's, I use the word recreation and leisure, but that can be a little bit confusing. What I really mean to say when I say recreation and leisure is it's about relaxation, where you can really switch off. And for me, that's a very important part of my life, is to be able to, at the end of the day, be able to relax and switch off and not bother about whatever the day has been, whether it's been a good day or a bad day, it doesn't matter. So that's what I mean by recreation and leisure, because when I say recreation, leisure, people think of, doing fun things, which is part of relaxation. But it doesn't mean that you have to do something. You can just do nothing. In fact, one of the things I've discovered is that doing nothing is one of the greatest luxuries, to be lazy. I love being lazy. And when I say that to people, they get a shock. Lazy, they've been brought up to believe that lazy is a bad thing. It's a good thing.
So I remember a quote by John Lennon, and he said, "Time enjoyed spent wasting was not wasted."
Yeah.
That's a fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant.
I love that. And, we need that in the society now. We're too hyper geared to make money, do stuff.
I think a lot of it is the social media beast of keeping up with the Joneses. Well, they're doing stuff all the time. We need to be doing stuff all the time, honey. No, we don't. And often my wife is like, "We need to go and do more stuff." I'm like, "What are you? Why?
Yeah.
Why can't we just sit at home with our boy and do nothing? It's the best." No, we should go play papa. He's 4 months old. He can't play papa. What are you talking about? No. I hope she doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, so our values need to change. And you know what's beautiful about this crazy world we're living in? I mean, the more I watch the news, we're living in an insane asylum. Obviously, this world is so insane. And the good thing about it is it's making us we're starting to learn that there is no purpose for war. There's no purpose for hate. And there's so much of it out there. And it's good for us to see it and actually realize, I don't want anything to do with that. And I think that's what's going to turn the world in a different direction. So as bad as it looks, the good thing about it is we're starting to realize that it's not what we want. We don't want our children to grow up in a world like that. And I believe that realization is starting to shift. And I think once the realization is there, then the world will be like a domino effect. It'll start to change.
I look at children, especially young children, and their sense of generosity and kindness and just love is amazing. And it's only once the world starts to get hold of them and they can really comprehend everything that it starts to dissipate. And again, for myself, acts of kindness are so important. It doesn't have to be a money act. It's just little things. They can make somebody else's day, and hopefully they will pass that kindness on to somebody else.
Yeah.
I love that. And we were talking about it yesterday in one of the workshops that I was running. We were talking about this issue with communication at home. as an example, and it relates to every aspect of communication at work, with customers, with staff, whatever. But we're just talking about, women often say that when they talk to a man about their problems, men want to solve the problem. They're quite capable of solving the problem. They just want somebody to listen. And there was one guy who jumped in, Tristan, and he was saying, yeah, but, he finds his wife exaggerates the problem. and I said to him, that's a judgment of her. All she wants you to do is listen. And if you would just listen, not judge what she's saying, just give her the generosity, the kindness of listening. And that's such a powerful thing for any of us to do, is this person may be exaggerating the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is your inability to give them that space to share whatever it is they feel they need to get off their chest.
They just want some of your time and understanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's this 20-year study that Oxford University did where it was about, I can't remember the actual title of this experiment or study that they were doing.
Eden.
Hey?
Oh, I don't know.
No, it was about how to bring up well-adjusted young men. It had something to do with boys or men or whatever the title was. But they found that fathers who spent literally, and I mean literally, because sometimes we misuse the word, 5 minutes, where with the eyes of the father, the way he was looking at the child, the way that his body language, the tone of his voice, the way that he was leaning in that 5 minutes, that son within 5 minutes knew that his father loved him. He didn't have to spend 3 days with his son to prove that to him. And that's what I say to a lot of the guys that I work with. They say they go home and the wife complains that they get home too late. And I said, that's not the issue. In fact, one of my clients said to me, his wife says to him, she doesn't mind that he comes home late, but then he's preoccupied. He's looking at his phone, he's looking at messages, he's sending SMSs or whatever the case is, and he's not invested.
In the moment.
Not present.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got this client these clients in Germany, they're gay. They call each other the husbands, okay, which sounds sometimes a bit strange to hear somebody masculine say, my husband, okay. But he says, my husband, the Portuguese guy says, my husband says that I'm emotionally unavailable, okay. And I think that's typical of most marriages, is we're not available, okay. And so when we look at those 7 areas, and I've covered them all.
I don't think so. I think
Yes,
we got
I
up
have.
to work.
Okay,
maybe.
I looked at my okay, so spiritual, friends and family we put together, work, wealth. Mind you, we didn't talk about wealth.
I gotta say, Bronwyn's on
Maybe
point.
we need to talk about wealth.
But I think we can talk about wealth in another episode, Mike. There's a whole area on that one, which you've got some good ideas on.
Right, so wealth, mental, leisure, health, family.
Wealth was the one we left out.
Yeah, wealth with the most important one,
Yeah.
according
For
to
next
this
time.
podcast.
According to financial planners, yes.
All right, so how are we doing time-wise? Are we...
Yeah, I think whenever you guys are ready, but I'm enjoying this conversation. I don't want to cut it just because we have to.
Well, we've got another episode. Mike's a busy man and he's coming in next week as well.
That is true, Mark. Do you have an appointment this morning, or are you...
No, I'm chilled like you. In fact, interesting enough, Friday is my day off.
Lucky.
Oh, thank you for coming on your day.
Yeah,
I think maybe you can just do a wraparound of what those areas mean and what does a balance of them or
Good,
what's
Bronwyn.
like
Keep me
important about
focused.
it.
Okay.
She does this very well.
What is important about those 7 areas and how does a person actually start?
Okay, so let's start off with spiritual. Spiritual is not necessarily religious. And it's not even necessarily meditation, although I'm a big fan of meditation. To me, if you go on a picnic and you sitting with your family and you feeling the warmth of the sun, and you can hear the birds singing and the voices, the kids screaming and excited in the pool and whatever it is, I mean, that can be an incredible experience of God, probably the most powerful. Even and I sometimes need to be careful what I say here, but it can even be more inspiring than sitting in a cold church and listening to some sermon. Okay, my daughter says I mustn't talk that way, but anyway, it's okay. Thank you.
But I think it's everybody has their own version of it, and it's whatever works for you. If it's God, if it's the source, if it's
And I like that,
meditation.
Bronwyn. I think that's a very good definition, because what works for you.
Yeah.
It's true. My wife is very religious and I'm not at all. But we are both very spiritual in our own ways.
Exactly.
And I
You
love
step
the
into
fact
yours.
that hers is Christianity. I love it. I love it because I can see how it brings her peace. And that's all that matters, really.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good definition. It brings her peace. And so they're spiritual. It can be anything, in my opinion, really, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Then the mental health is, again, the mindset, how we perceive things.
And how would you work on your mindset?
Now, I'm a big, huge fan, even more so than meditation, on blessings. I believe that
So
when
gratitude
you
and
count your
blessing.
blessings, you wake up in the morning and a lot of people say, I'm breathing, I'm alive. That's a good start. And then I go into the bathroom and I switch on the tap and there's water running. That's a blessing. And there's hot water. I can have a hot shower. I go to my fridge and the fridge is filled with food. And the fridge has kept the food, fresh. And there's just so many things to be grateful for. But I think as a society, in fact, they say the shortest lived emotion is appreciation, which I think is so sad. Sure. And so when we talk about mental health, I think, again, if you are, let's say, experiencing all the good things in your life, you're breathing, you're alive, you go through to the kids' rooms and there they are sleeping and you have to wake them up to go to school or whatever. Okay. You have a family that loves you. We take so much for granted until it's taken away from us, and that seems to be the only way that we appreciate. So to me, mental is that sense of being prosperous and wealthy.
Okay.
And then there's health, physical health, which we relate to very strongly. Going to gym, eating the right foods. People are very strong on the physical. And I think sometimes that's a problem, is we see ourselves as physical when in actual fact we're not. We're spiritual. We are energy, the quantum body is all
Love.
energy. Okay. And so health is physical, but our psychology affects our biology, and we need to be very aware of that.
And I often think people go and try work for money their whole lives, or work for all of these different things, and they forget about their health, and then all their money has to be spent on their health. Beautiful. Because they're not looking after their physical well-being. It's so important.
Yeah. And very neglected. The obesity rates worldwide are shocking. And so there's physical, then there's family and friends, which we've combined as one.
Thank you.
Just to keep to the 7. And I think family, for me, I've always been fanatical about my family. my kids, my son, my daughters, and I'm going to confess a little bit. I talk like this in my workshops. I find it very cathartic. We were in a 24-year marriage that was a very difficult marriage. So family is challenging. And friendships. I mean, I think when I was younger, I had a good circle of friends. But then I think when I was in my sort of late teens, early adolescent, I kind of didn't feel that friends were a good thing. Okay. But I meet a lot of clients who I really admire because they have good friendships, and I admire their connection to their friends.
And I think it's about those good friendships, those ones that are on the same vibrations as you, that are lifting you up and not pulling you down,
Exactly. And
you referred to drinking. That group of friends could...
Yeah, I'm not friends with them anymore.
Exactly. Because you change. When your vibrations get higher,
My wife always jokes that I don't really have many friends. And I say, because I've only got good ones.
Amazing.
I can count on one hand the amount of friends I actually have. And 2 of them live in England.
You're a rich person.
From when I used to live there. And I'm very happy.
Yeah, you've got wealth.
And the big thing for me about friends is environment is everything. And I don't know if you've ever thought of that quote. I forget who said it, but he said environment is everything. And what I understood is that whoever you hang out with, there's been that study that says you are the culmination of your top 5 friends.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they're drinkers or druggies or whatever it is, guess what?
Yeah.
And so I think environment is everything. And to me, friendship is choosing the right friends who will create the right environment that's conducive for you to do whatever it is that fits in with your values.
Yeah, they must fill your battery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's health. And we've spoken about mental leisure. Leisure, again,
we spoke about that sort of where you said it's not just...
I've covered that.
Yeah.
And work, to me, I've always been accused of being a workaholic. And I think the one thing I enjoy about myself is that I love what I do. But again, one has to be aware if it's impacting the people around you negatively.
I also think when you find your purpose, that's all you sort of want to do, because you know the impact that you'll have on many people.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, how is that impacting your family? How's that impacting your health? You've got to think of those areas if work drives you that much.
I've always thought of, the term addiction. People often subjugate it into, is it a chemical? Is it a mental? Is it a whatever? And I've always come to this realization that, you get drug addicts, you get alcoholics, you get workaholics, you get gamblers, all of this, right? Ultimately, these are people who allow the time they have to be filled solely with one thing and don't give it to those who love them and they should be loved. So I think that when we talk about work, it's important to not, workaholic is such a silly term to me, because it's, I can do the thing I love a lot as long as I'm still fulfilling my roles as a father, as a son, as a brother, as whatever, and I'm still
looking after your health. And
there's nothing wrong with loving what you do and doing it a lot, but you can't let other parts of your life suffer.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge for all of us, is that we have some sort of balance. Gary Keller, who owns the largest real estate company in the world, Keller Williams, and he wrote a book and he said that balance is a lie. And I disagree with that totally. Because to me, balance is what's what saves your life. It saved my life. I realized that I was very obsessive. I've been like that my whole life, obsessive. But I decided to be obsessive about all 7 areas. And that has really helped.
Amazing.
You know, so obsessive about your health, obsessive about wealth, obsessive about whatever. And then you can't really lose.
So I remember when I was 17 I was in England doing my A-levels, and I did chemistry. And the concept of equilibrium came in with chemistry. And I thought, well, that is fascinating, because they often said it's a dynamic equilibrium, as in things change over time, and temperature can affect things, whatever. But ultimately, we are always finding a balance. Chemically, there's always going to be a balance. And so isn't life a dynamic equilibrium that is constantly shifting?
Absolutely.
But you have to have the equilibrium. It can't just be, the seesaw on one end is heavy. You have to find that dynamic balance the whole time. And it does
Agreed.
change.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say this, that when you start to focus and you're obsessive about, and I know people maybe think I'm using the wrong word, but I prefer to use the word obsessive about relaxation, you learn a lot about life, of how the body works and how the body, sleep, the power of sleep, what happens when you sleep. And so you learn a lot of things by being obsessive about something. If you're not obsessive, you don't learn anything, because you just skim it. You just superficially go through it. Whereas if you're obsessive about it, you dive deeper into it. And by diving deep into it, you extract the gems of that area of life, whether it be family, the beauty of family, to have a family. I don't know if you ever watched that movie, Mrs. Doubtfire. And there's that speech that she gives about family. It's so brilliant. Some families have one father and no mother, and some have, there's different versions of family. And it's such an incredible description about what family is. It's not that traditional thing of husband and wife and children. It can be all sorts of things. And so the more you delve into those areas of life, you actually realize there's just so much that you don't know, that you've never been told. And then you fall in love with those 7 areas, and they're not negotiable. And there's no such thing as balance is a lie. That's bull dust.
Awesome.
And so now you fall in love with those areas, and you respect them, and you treat them with respect. That it's time for me to just chill. Put away the books, put away the computer, whatever. And so I love the 7 areas of life.
So when you said a second ago about family doesn't have to be your actual family, it's interesting. One of my employees is a Malawian, and every day he'll say, "Oh, my brother, this happened to my brother recently." And when Joseph, is he your actual brother? Are you related in any way? And he goes, "Not really, no." I was like, "Well, okay, so everyone is your brother?" He goes, "Yeah, these are my Malawi brothers." And I just thought the way that their community, he describes community to them, it's amazing.
That's why they go through so many funerals.
That's it.
The brother died, the aunt died, the uncle died.
The aunt's friend's mother died, and they all have to, chip in.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Different
It is beautiful.
societies, and respecting them.
Thank you, Mark. I think this has been really insightful for our listeners, and we will definitely touch on the wealth one in a separate episode. If someone wanted to reach out to you, Mark, and maybe come and do some coaching with you or listen to a few things, how can they get hold of you?
Well, let me just make it simple and just give you my website, which is www, and then it's expansion. And the way you spell expansion, I'm dyslexic, so you'll hear my speech is a little bit challenged sometimes. Just in case you think, whatever you think. Okay, he's a bit impaired or whatever. I'm happy with that. Expansion is spelt like the word, but except you take the E out. So it's expansion.
Right. So
Okay.
XP, etc., etc. Yeah.
XPANSION.
I'm not going to spell it. Let's not go down there.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were maybe same as
No,
me.
I was worried there for a second. I might get it wrong.
And it's .co, not COZA. It's
Yeah.
.co. That's it.
Oh, okay. I've not heard of that before.
CO.
All right. CO. Okay. Cool. Well, you guys can put that in the blurb.
Yes.
as
We'll do that
We
as
will,
well.
for sure.
But Mark,
Yeah.
it's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed this episode.
Thank
Me
you
too. I
so
could
much,
be here
Mike.
forever.
I know. I
Wonderful,
think I
Mike.
might have to come visit you just for a chat.
You see why I call him Magic Mike.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Craig.
Have a good one.
Have a good
Cheers,
one.
everybody.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, would like to subscribe, please visit our website, www.growthfp.co.za. The information we have provided in this podcast is our personal opinion. For more detailed information, please discuss your financial situation with a financial planner.